50 years ago, as of April 17th, the first Ford Mustang was introduced. Predicted to go everywhere and do everything, the Mustang was a huge hit. The first generation, between 1964 and 1973, produced 3 million Mustangs. As a result, the Mustang became incredibly popular, as it still is today. Here to talk about their experiences, knowledge, and love for Mustangs, I have Carl Bishop, Chip Hill, and Cecil Bozarth.
My name's Carl Bishop. I've been a Mustang fan since I was a kid, and I've owned my own Mustangs for the last 14 years.
Can you tell me about the start of the Mustang name?
From what I understand from the history, the name came from the World War II P-51 Mustang that was put on the first prototype.
When did you first become interested in Mustangs?
I've been interested in Mustangs ever since I was a kid, but I didn't own my own Mustang until 2000.
What was your first Mustang?
My first Mustang was a 2000 V6, and I still own it today.
What year was your favorite model year of the Ford Mustang, and which models do you currently own?
My favorite model would have been a 67 or a 68 Shelby Mustang. And I also always liked the notchback Fox Mustangs. I have owned my original Mustang, a 2000 V6. In between, I bought a 92 Coupe, a notchback. And my third Mustang that I've owned is my 2008 Shelby GT.
Did you buy your first Mustang new?
I did, and it's still with the family.
How many people in your family have owned Mustangs?
Everybody. Both my sons own a Mustang. My daughter's first car was a Mustang. My wife's owned a Mustang. My mom and dad have owned Mustangs.
Did you ever try out another car and then come back to the Mustang?
Earlier in my life, I couldn't afford one when I was a kid. But my wife and I's first car was a Camaro Z28, which we only owned about a year and a half because we had a baby and it wasn't very practical.
Have you ever driven on a racetrack?
A bunch of times.
What's fun about these events?
It's very addicting once you get to go out and take full advantage of what a Mustang can do on a racetrack.
What's your most memorable experience involving a Mustang?
I had the chance to go to the Boss Track Attack out in Salt Lake City last year. I can still picture that weekend getting to go do that. I was only one of 3 non-Boss owners to actually get to drive a Boss 302 in that high-performance driving school. Another event that was very memorable was going to last year's Woodward Dream Cruise, where I got to spend a few minutes with the Mustang chief engineer, Dave Pasherik, and got to talk to him about the upcoming 2015 Mustang. He didn't share very much, but I at least got to pick his brain for a little bit.
Hi, I'm Chip Hill. I'm a big-time Mustang fan. I've been interested in them, I guess, since my dad first bought one, and I bought my first Mustang myself when I was in my early 30s, and got involved with the Triangle Area Mustang Club about 20 years ago, and I've been really involved with them ever since.
What do you know about the history of the Mustang?
I guess probably the most important thing, especially with regards to this car, is that the introduction date was April the 17th of 1964. And they unveiled the car at the New York World's Fair, which was pretty cool. This car right here was built before they went on sale, and it was one of the ones that was sold on the first day of introduction, and that's what the day one pony means.
When did you first become interested in Mustangs?
I guess initially when I was a little kid. I mean, I was 5 years old when my dad bought a 65 Mustang brand new, one of the first ones in Charlotte, I believe it was. And he bought a blue one. It was a coupe. And my uncle, he bought one. I'm not sure what color it was, but they used to cruise up and down the streets there in Charlotte with it, and back and forth to their hometown in Kinston. I remember riding around in the back seat. That's what started me being interested in them. But I didn't buy another one until I guess I was 32 years old. I bought a 69 Fastback. And that was a cool car. It's one of my favorite ones, but it was in pretty rough shape, and it was going to take a lot of money to restore it. So I bought this car, and it was in drivable shape, but it needed a lot of work too. So pretty heavily involved with them ever since. That was about a little over 20 years ago.
Which year was your favorite model year of the Ford Mustang, and which models do you currently own?
My favorite model years. Well, I guess the two that I definitely like the most are the very first generation, the 65 Mustang, especially the convertible and the Fastback. And then probably about as equally, I like the 1969 Fastbacks. What Mustangs do I currently own? So I've got this 64 and a half. I've got another 64 and a half that is in a lot worse shape, but is driven a little bit. And then I've got a 1991 Mustang GT convertible and a 2005 light blue one. It's a Fastback.
You said your favorite models were the 65 and the 69. What makes them your favorite?
I guess just the styling with the 65, early 64 and a half and 65s, just the very sleek body lines. And with the 69, I really like the swoop that it has in the trunk area. That's pretty cool.
Have you ever driven on a racetrack? And if so, what makes it so fun?
Yeah, I used to own a 2003 Cobra Mustang, and that car was really powerful, had great handling, had like 400 horsepower to the rear wheels. And when you put something like that on a racetrack, it gives you an opportunity to really open it up and see what it can do. And it's like the ultimate amusement park ride.
How many people in your family have owned Mustangs?
Just myself and my dad and my uncle.
What's your most memorable experience involving a Mustang?
Probably the most interesting thing I can remember doing in the not too distant past was when our Heart of Carolina Mustang Club took a trip up to the Fontana Dam area in western North Carolina as a group, and my whole family went, and we took the 2003 Cobra convertible up there, and it's at a place where there's a stretch of road with like 100 turns in it in a 6-mile stretch called Tail of the Dragon, and part of the trip we spent driving up and down that really windy road, and that was a lot of fun.
What was your first Mustang?
This is my first Mustang. I got this in 1982, and so I went with this Mustang, and I've had it ever since.
Did you buy your first Mustang new?
16 years old when I bought it, so it was well used. It was actually my first car.
When did you first become interested in Mustangs?
It's a good question. I've always been interested in old cars. My dad always liked Mustangs, and we had a neighbor who liked Mustangs. So when it came time for me to buy what was a used car back then, Mustang seemed like an obvious choice, and I fell in love.
Did anyone in your family ever own a Mustang?
No, but I think my dad always wanted one, so I'm the first.
What's your most memorable experience involving a Mustang?
Oh my gosh, most memorable experience in this car. I was married in this car. but probably the most memorable experience is heading down to Florida with some of my friends on spring break in college, and there were 4 of us in this car. But back in the early 80s, the speed limit was 55 miles per hour. Now, if you can imagine driving on an interstate at 55 miles per hour, it can't be done in one of these cars. So I got pulled over, I think, twice, but didn't get a ticket.
Can you give me some details about the car?
This is what they called a GT coupe, GT Gran Turismo. This car came with a 4-barrel 289 engine, disc brakes, a little bit lowered suspension, a little bit heavier duty, but it was a fun car. The tacky vinyl roof came with it too, but that's the way it goes.
When did you have the car restored?
I had this car restored I started restored in the mid-90s, and I did about as much as I could, and then I had a guy named Frank Gibson did the body work. Loved it, I would probably never get rid of it.